Well, thank you so much. First of all, good morning, everyone. First of all, let me say congratulations and thank you to the All South Summit organization for counting on me year by year. This is one of my favorite events across our ecosystem, so I'm really grateful to be here. Attending to the title of this panel, we're going to talk about companies who are using AI, of course, to transform how industries operate, make decisions, and scale globally. So let me introduce the real protagonist of this panel. First of all, we have Juanjo Mestre. He is the CEO and co-founder of Dcycle. Juanjo, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty fine, thank you.
We have Ricardo Roman. He is the Chief Sales Officer of Fracttal. Ricardo.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And we have Sandra Nolasco. She is the co-founder and CEO of Twinco Capital. Sandra, how are you?
Very good. I'm very excited to be here.
It's a great pleasure to me to have you three here. So we want to know at the beginning what your companies do. For example, Juanjo, what is exactly Dcycle?
Yeah, Dcycle is the platform that over 2,000 companies already use to gather fragmented and scattered data around the organization. So basically operational data, everything related to logistics, supplier purchases, energetic consumptions, so they can work with cross-department data on automating their reports and actually building on top of every piece of operational data any use case they need with AI. So Dcycle gets connected to the LLM they are already using, so they get this full traceability and visibility of their data connected directly to their LLM.
Ricardo, in the case of Fracttal.
Yeah, we at Fracttal focus on solving maintenance problems for large corporations and medium business. We are working with companies that are in the industry sector, energy sector, or even facility management and retail. What we do is in a simple term, is to organize the information that all these processes are generating and give access to that information in a clear manner to decision makers so they can make the best decisions for the business and extract some value out of this process as well.
Sandra, what you can tell us about Twinco?
Well, Twinco is a finance company, so a little bit the odd one out here, a finance company which is tech-enabled, and what we do is that we fund global production networks. I always find it easier to explain with an example. So you have a company like Mango, for example, and they issue a purchase order to produce those T-shirts that everybody's using in Pakistan or Bangladesh, etc. So when they issue that purchase order, the supplier in those countries, they need money to buy the raw materials, pay the wages, etc. And the traditional banking was not really providing competitive and affordable finance at that time, at the point that they start the production. And Twinco, using technology, using data, is today, I think, one of the few companies in the world that actually can finance from the beginning, from the purchase order, all the way to final invoice payments. And we've been funding about $1 billion worth of purchase orders without any losses.
And let me say, I guess we have some great news about Twinco Capital actually this week. I don't know if you want to tell us something about that.
Well, yes, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, yesterday we just announced 160 million euros of funding round, both equity and debt. Equity was 15 million, was led by FMO and participated as a new investor by Bankinter and some of the existing shareholders as well. And $150 million securitization funds. It's the first fund in the world which is dedicated to purchase order funding, and that was led by Banco Santander, so we were super happy at Twinco.
Not bad. This is worth an applause, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Well, guys, again, attending to the title of this panel, I would like to do the next question. What does exactly a smart infrastructure really mean, Ricardo?
Well, in our business, capturing data and making decisions around the data has been around for 30 to 40 years. And what we call right now intelligent is not only not only to be able to map the decisions that you will make given the certain circumstances, but combining that information and combining all that data and being able to understand what's really happening with the assets and the machines, okay? So in a sense, what we're seeing now are infrastructure or assets in general that are able to auto-diagnose and in some cases, even, well, reaching out into auto-repair themselves on the go. So that's what I think is the next frontier of what we call it intelligent infrastructure.
Sandra?
Well, I mean, very much on that line, for us, it's really like when it's basically three things, really. You get the data when it happens, right? You using that data to really predict or guide a decision. And then the third point is that actually that is already informing and it's fully embedded in the workflow and in the systems that you have. I saw a sentence that was saying it's really when when a system is no longer just slower without AI, but it's actually worse without AI. It's making the decisions, helping you really making the decisions better and implement those decisions. That's when you really have a smart infrastructure.
Juanjo, I don't know if it's similar to Dcycle.
Well, in our thesis, we've been saying for a couple of years that essentially every company has been somehow blindfolded because they were looking at financial data, but all of the rest of the data pieces, everything that is actually moving the business physically, it's been somehow scattered. So right now that eventually every company would turn into an agentic company, having the right data on top of what they want to build is actually that it's becoming actually essential in this transition.
Sandra?
Let me take that because I think that is exactly right. That's the basis why Twinco, for example, was doing purchase order funding at a global scale for even SMEs, productions in countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, etc. It's precisely because instead of looking at their financials that are like 1 year outdated and just tell a very small part of the story, we are looking at that data from how do they deliver? Have they been delayed? What was the quality of that delivery process? What is the buyer behavior? And that's exactly when you can use then that to make different decisions and actually go much beyond what traditional banking was going. So I think it's a right spot on.
Exactly.
Ricardo.
And at what point did AI stop being a productivity tool and start becoming a business infrastructure? Juanjo, for example.
Well, regarding the same line, every company will turn essentially an agentic company, right? So if you understand how AI is reshaping every industry and every company, basically AI is not going to be any longer a copilot. So it's something you check actually to make smarter decisions, but AI is going to take a lot of those decisions and actually run a lot of those processes, right? So whenever the company is ready, and actually what makes them ready is being able to operate the data that is behind the systems, right? How a company works, how's the policies, how's the structure, how decisions are made. I tend to say always that regarding this AI transition, it's way more valuable to get their own Slack into this AI brain rather than financial systems, because what we're essentially trying to copy is how they are going to become this agentic company.
Exactly. Ricardo?
Yeah, in our business, only the top industries in the world, the big, huge corporations, have something called the reliability department, okay? And they are the only ones that can afford this level of professionals. There are not many of them in the world, so it's very, it's very expensive to have one of these departments. But you still need reliability for your assets. So what we are seeing right now is that these companies that could never access this next level of optimization are now enabled by technology and AI to reach these goals. And it's becoming not only, right now it's more projects and working asset by asset and company by company, But what we're seeing is a trend that everything is going to be, filtered through AI, and you're going to have not only data but information and decisions made by the AI, and help you achieve your reliability goals in this regard.
Sandra?
Well, I'll go again with an example.
Yeah.
Well, you have a productivity tool when you say, well, help me write this email faster. Or in our case, in finance, for example, we used to have a lot of people typing in the financial statements that you got on PDF and into an Excel. So of course now that can be done very quick as a tool and as a productivity. But it really starts becoming infrastructure. For example, in our case, when you look at the supplier and you're looking and trying to determine what is the probability that they will deliver those T-shirts, right? So that then we get repaid. Well, then your model can say and can look at the data and say, hey, we have seen that if a supplier changes the pattern of delivery, not if is more delayed one supplier than the other, but if a supplier that used to be 15 days delayed starts having a lot of volatility, that's a very strong early warning signal that you may have a credit problem in the near future. So when the system starts being able to predict those early warning signals and then also flag what should be the decision and the action that you're taking after that, that's when it becomes part of your infrastructure. Don't take me wrong, the tool and the productivity tool is very important, and we make a lot of investment on that as well, but the real transformational change is effectively when they really is embedded in your decision-making process.
Mm-hmm. I'm coming back to Ricardo. Do you think can Europe lead in industrial AI even if lags behind in generative AI?
Well, it's two separate sets of problems that we're solving. Of course, Gen AI has some saying in what we're doing, especially around interfacing and interacting with humans and agents and all that. But in this market, in maintenance market, you really need to be assertive, and you cannot risk having an hallucination, for example. So everything that you have to do, you have to test it and try it, and try to give it as much iterations as possible in order to have a solid prognosis or predictive analysis. So in this regard, we believe that yes, it's something that ties up with all the knowledge that is already in the industry, that is in the companies that are building the capital assets for other enterprises. So it's very simple to see that the path forward is to automate this thought process and analysis into AI tools.
Mm-hmm. Juanjo, are you agree?
Yeah, but in my 2 cents are basically, the AI has 5 layers, right?
Yep.
The infrastructure, the energy, the chips and GPUs, the models, the LLMs and stuff, and the application layer, right? So we're losing 2 of them. Mm-hmm. We're losing the chips one and the GPUs and stuff, and we're losing the models. But we can, I guess we can win 3 of those 5 fights. So regarding the application layer, what, in my opinion, AI has done for us is that it has equalized everyone on the same level. So right now with AI, what I'm seeing, and I don't know if you're doing it, but I'm seeing a lot of young talent, for example, 18-year-old guys, 20-year-old guys that compete with top-level engineers in San Francisco, people from Valencia, Castellón, Madrid, whatever. So again, my point is, if it's balancing us between having the same capabilities actually to make great software, great technology companies, then we will be able yet to fight for these 3 that are still yet to see who wins.
Mm-hmm. Sandra, and with all this knowledge, actually, in 2026, which decision remain profoundly human?
Well, one of the things, and I'll join the 2 questions together, right? Because I think they're very much linked, especially in industrial AI, when you talk about that. This is really about how you deploy AI into the processes, right? And for that, I think that if in Gen AI, you're looking at who makes the better model. So you need capital and computing capacity, energy, etc. In industrial AI, you need to really embed that in the workflow. You need a lot of expert domain knowledge. So now going back to what's human, right? AI has been helping us at Twinco tremendously in improving the analysis of finding out which supplier is more likely to not deliver or more likely to deliver, etc. So they help us assess risk better. But a human needs to set up the risk framework, the risk appetite. What are the trade-offs that you are willing to accept? So AI is really helping you into say, okay, how do I maximize for a trade-off? How do I maximize for this risk appetite? But really, and especially industrial AI, if you look at expert domain knowledge to really put that model to work in something that makes sense from a commercial perspective, to choose the trade-offs and to set up the risk appetite, this is profoundly human, at least for now. We never know. So we're very humble there, but we do think that that's a very important aspect. Today, a big model can make something that from a mathematical perspective and an engineering perspective is amazing, but you still need that domain knowledge to know whether that makes sense from a commercial perspective.
I don't know if Ricardo and Juanjo wants to complete Sandra's speech.
Well, I just was taking when you chat with ChatGPT or Claude and you say, hey, you made a mistake. And say, oh, of course, yes, you're totally right. And it's not this mistake, it's a machine. It just doesn't make any mistakes. It's your fault. I think it's something that's very human and that we have to exercise even more. And I think my kids are going to be experts on this. One day is the context, okay? Navigating through context. We're using these tools as if they were people that you can ask, but they are more like searchers. They're looking for context and the exact part of the corpus they have that can answer your question. So we need to be better at asking those questions and more precise, so we can avoid these kind of mistakes.
Juanjo.
My guess is that too much opinions are yet made by humans. So more that I would like to see. But here we are at the edge of innovation and stuff. But whenever you go to real companies and the real industrial companies out there, basically they are using Copilot actually to summarize meetings. So this is how AI is actually being implemented out there. All right. So I guess there's too much human decisions yet in the loop. But I have the disgrace of being a philosopher, so I need to go there. But we've been creating the system of work for the last 40, 50 years to become profoundly an optimizing system, right? So optimizing things, AI is way better than us. So I guess the challenge is to reshape how we understand work, how we understand creativity. If, in software companies, actually creativity and productivity has been pretty linked to how fast you could write code, right? How fast you could ship features. So yet this is no longer what a human should be doing, right? So I guess the challenge is to reshape how we understand work.
I'm going to make a quick stop here because let me say it's so cool to see this growth stage completely full. And we have some free seats in the first and in the second line. So if any of you want to come here and join us, please, there's free seats here near to us. We have to continue. Ricardo, what does it mean to move from reactive to predictive maintenance?
Well, it's a big paradigm change in the industry, especially like I said before, these companies that could never afford a reliability department, and they were thinking, well, if it fails, I'm gonna fix it when it breaks down, no? And having this paradigm change is gonna make them think ahead and then schedule the production. For example, they have a big purchase order coming. Okay, we need to stop before we get to the season of most productivity because we have the data that is accompanying this decision. It's going to be also linked to a reducing in waste. Okay, there are many. We think waste as well. We are not doing maintenance enough, but in maintenance you can do a lot of maintenance, and that's a waste too. And in this regard, we can optimize in that sense and actually use better the resource we have. So it's going to change everything because now you can schedule ahead, you can use third parties, assets are getting more complex and more complex each time, and the amount of technicians that know to repair them is declining at the end of the day. So you have a bottleneck over here. So I think with all these technologies, we're going to be able to bend the curve and we're going to be able to work in a different manner, but it's going to be better than we have today.
Great. Juanjo, in your case, can sustainability become a real competitive advantage, not just a regulatory one?
Yeah, not sustainability itself, in my opinion, but I guess there are a lot of quality directors, sustainability directors that have been pushed because of regulation that are actually making the data stack for the company because they are gathering every data piece of the company because they need to report it to super complex systems, right? So actually making it worth is something that only them can actually do right now because they are tackling that challenge of building up the data stack because they're every time pursuing the HR managers, legal teams, finance teams in order to gather all of those data pieces. So building the data stack with the right data pieces with a validation and governed forms, it's something really, really useful for the next stage of companies.
Sandra, I'm coming with you. How does business financing change when supply chains become smarter and more traceable?
In a transformational way, really. If you think about it, finance or credit in particular is about risk, right? And risk is all about data and information. And a lot of the finance gaps that we had in the world have a lot to do with difference of information, right? You have a supplier, again, in Bangladesh that has and can be a very good supplier, but it's very difficult for a lender, for example, here in Madrid or in the US to actually know that information. In the past, especially if you're looking at financial accounts from 2024. So what this does, what smarter supply chains do, what AI is doing, is really transforming each and every piece of step of that supply chain into a signal, into information that if you can use, and that's exactly the basis of Twinco, if you can then use it, understand it, and use it for your risk assessment, it makes you able to underwrite that risk, so to finance people and businesses, etc., that you could not finance before. And that's really the genesis of Twinco. When we first started, that's why a lot of the traditional banks in the past were just financing the invoice, right? The credit risk on Mango and Corte Inglés, etc., because the information there was much more transparent. So by looking at the data of the supply chain, we can underwrite, we can understand the risk of many SMEs and small producers around 25 different countries. That's what is transformational. And this is just one case in global production networks, but this is true in about every area of risk and financing in the world. It's very exciting. I love finance.
Well, we have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask the last question. 10 years from now, because we are in South Summit and we would like to look to the future, what aspects of current business operation will seem completely obsolete from here? Ricardo, for example. It's a tough one.
I don't know what's going to happen in next year.
Yeah, to see the future is always difficult.
That's the hard part of this moment in time. We're changing the product, we're changing the company, we're changing the process within. And I think many of the things that we take for granted. For example, communication. That shouldn't be an issue anymore. You know, we should get to the point that whatever you need, what information you need from the company, you're going to be able to access it without any gatekeeper or people, you know, just blocking the door. And you know, we're going to see maybe smaller teams that are able to communicate better and have all the information available for when they need it.
Sandra?
Well, I have twin boys, right, of 14 years old, and they cannot imagine how we did it in the past without a GPS and Google Maps to do everything. And I think that in 10 years from now, people will really look at you and think, did you really give a credit based on financial accounts? They're going to think that you were crazy. Because there's indeed all these additional information that are so fundamental for the decision taking. And I think that's going to be a little bit the same. Google Maps towards financial accountants.
Juanjo.
I guess your question is splitting between technology development speed and adoption speed, right? So I guess in these top edge or cutting edge innovation companies, everything would be completely different, right? Completely different. But again, out there, if you go to Cuenca and find a logistics company out there, they're working with this yellow jacket in a PVC container. So it's that kind of technology adoption within those kind of companies that remain profoundly human are going to take a little bit longer, because human relations are really difficult. Way more difficult than actually deploying an AI model, I guess, right? We get along with these 2,000 companies. And the most single repeated sentence is something like, oh no, this Manolo from finance, he's an asshole, he's never giving me the data, right? So these kind of human relations are going to be stuck for, I guess, a little bit more.
Well, it has been a great, great pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. I would like to ask a big applause for Sandra Nolasco, Ricardo Roman, and Juanjo Mestre. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot, so thank you so much. Congratulations.